Life is a tapestry woven with relationships. Each thread represents the people we care about, the bonds we form, and the connections that shape us. Some of these threads shine brightly, bringing joy and warmth into our lives. But sometimes, the very relationships we cherish the most can become the source of our greatest pain. It's a paradox that many of us grapple with. The closer we are to someone, the more vulnerable we become to their actions, and the more likely we are to experience hurt. We may love someone deeply, yet find ourselves tangled in their expectations, disappointments, or even their emotional turmoil. We cling to these bonds, believing that love alone can heal all wounds. But sometimes, holding on too tightly only causes more suffering. So, what if I told you that cutting ties with someone you love, someone who no longer brings you peace, might not be an act of cruelty, but an act of profound wisdom? What if letting go could be the key to your freedom, healing, and inner peace? In this video, we'll explore the teachings of Zen and Buddhist philosophy, which offer a powerful perspective on the art of letting go. It's not about severing relationships out of anger or hate, but about finding peace through detachment, about honoring the impermanence of life, and learning to release what no longer serves us. You'll learn how to cut ties with love, without losing your compassion, and how this process can lead to liberation, healing, and personal growth. But before we dive into these profound teachings, let me share with you a story about a weaver and a frayed thread. This story will help us understand the true meaning of letting go and why sometimes cutting ties is the most loving thing we can do for both ourselves and others. The story of the weaver and the frayed thread. Once, there was a skilled weaver known far and wide for creating tapestries so intricate and breathtaking that they seemed to capture the very essence of life itself. Each thread she used was a symbol, each one representing a relationship, an experience, or a memory in her life. Some threads were vibrant and full of color, while others were more subdued and faded. Yet, every thread, no matter its hue or texture, held meaning and contributed to the overall design of her masterpiece. Among these threads, one stood out above the rest. It was brighter, stronger, and more vibrant than any other. This particular thread was deeply connected to the weaver's heart. It represented a bond that had once been filled with joy and warmth. She loved this thread more than any other, and for many years, it remained the centerpiece of her tapestry. As the years passed, the weaver wove this thread in and out, admiring its strength and beauty. It became a symbol of something precious and irreplaceable in her life. But, as time went on, the thread began to change. Slowly, it started to fray at the edges, losing its former brilliance. What was once a solid, dependable thread now became tangled, pulling at the other threads around it. The weaver, desperate to preserve the beauty of her creation, tried everything she could to mend it. She tightened the knots, she smoothed the edges, and she adjusted the surrounding threads to compensate for the damage. But no matter how hard she tried, the thread continued to unravel. It no longer fit with the rest of the tapestry, and the damage was becoming too great to ignore. The once beautiful thread had become a source of pain, disrupting the harmony of her entire work. One quiet afternoon, as the weaver sat staring at her tapestry in frustration, her mentor, an elderly and wise figure, approached. The mentor's eyes, keen with experience, quickly saw the troubled thread that had become the weaver's focus. Gently, the mentor asked, "Why do you cling to this thread that disturbs the harmony of the whole tapestry?" The weaver, her voice tinged with sadness, replied, "I love it. It is the most beautiful thread I have ever woven. It has been with me for so long, and it holds so much meaning in my life. I cannot bear to let it go." The mentor nodded, understanding the depth of the weaver's attachment. After a pause, the mentor asked a question that struck to the heart of the weaver's dilemma. "But is this love bringing you peace, or is it bringing you suffering?" This simple yet profound question pierced through the weaver's heart, and in that moment, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. Despite her attachment to the thread, despite the love she felt for it, it was no longer serving her. The thread, once a symbol of beauty and connection, had become a constant source of struggle. Instead of enhancing the tapestry, it was pulling at the other threads, unraveling the very fabric of her life. The more she held on, the more chaos it caused. The weaver had been so focused on preserving the thread out of love that she had overlooked the fact that love should bring peace, not pain. In that moment, the weaver understood. Attachment to what no longer serves us, whether it be a person, a relationship, or a part of ourselves, can become a source of suffering. True love, she now realized, nurtures and heals. But when we hold on too tightly to something that is no longer healthy or in harmony with our lives, we risk losing our peace. The challenge of attachment and detachment. The story of the weaver and the frayed thread beautifully illustrates a fundamental teaching in Zen and Buddhist philosophy. Attachment is the root of suffering. The weaver's attachment to that one thread, no matter how beautiful it once was, kept her from seeing the bigger picture. She had become so fixated on preserving something that no longer served her well, that she overlooked the natural flow of change. In her desire to keep the thread intact, she neglected the very truth that is at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. All things are impermanent. Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." This quote carries with it a profound reminder that we are just as deserving of love as anyone else. But when we allow ourselves to become too attached to people, things, or situations that no longer bring us joy or peace, we forget this principle of self-love. The weaver's attachment to the fraying thread is symbolic of how, in life, we often hold on to relationships, situations, or habits that drain us. We continue to invest time and energy in them, believing that they are integral to our happiness, even when they are only causing us pain. In these moments, it is easy to believe that we cannot live without what we have attached ourselves to. We feel that if we let go, we will lose part of ourselves, or that the void left behind will be too great to bear. But the truth is, all things are transient. Just as the seasons change, so too do our relationships, our circumstances, and even our very selves. By clinging to the past, or to something that is no longer in alignment with our path, we are resisting the natural flow of life. In doing so, we only invite more suffering. This truth was something the weaver eventually came to understand. Had she continued to hold on to the fraying thread, the whole tapestry would have unraveled further. It wasn't until she allowed the thread to go that she experienced relief, and the other threads could finally shine in their true brilliance. By accepting the impermanence of the thread, she was freed from the pain of her attachment. The tapestry, as it was meant to be, could be restored to its full beauty. This story serves as a profound lesson about the importance of recognizing when something no longer serves us. The first step toward letting go is awareness. Awareness allows us to pause and reflect, to examine the impact a relationship, a habit, or a situation is having on us. Often, we carry on with the status quo out of habit, attachment, or fear. But in doing so, we may find ourselves sinking deeper into dissatisfaction, emotional turmoil, or stress. When we begin to recognize the signs that a relationship is no longer healthy or fulfilling, it's time to ask ourselves a key question. Is this relationship bringing me peace, or is it draining my energy and happiness? Often, the answer is clear, but the challenge lies in having the courage to act on it. The weaver could have continued clinging to her thread, afraid that cutting it would destroy her masterpiece. But in reality, the damage was already done, and only by letting go could she restore balance and harmony. In Zen philosophy, there's a practice of mindfulness and conscious detachment. Detachment doesn't mean turning away from love or relationships, but it does mean releasing our grip on the need to control or hold on to them. Detachment is the recognition that we are not defined by any one person or thing, and that our peace does not depend on any external circumstance. It is the ability to love without attachment, to give freely, without expecting anything in return. This is a difficult practice, especially when it comes to relationships we hold dear. We may fear that letting go means we don't care enough, or that we'll hurt others in the process. But in truth, the act of letting go is often one of the most loving things we can do, both for ourselves and for the other person involved. It's an act of self-compassion and respect. When we release what no longer serves us, we create space for new possibilities, new growth, and a deeper understanding of ourselves. The weaver's journey teaches us that attachment, when left unchecked, can lead to suffering, but that detachment, when done with awareness and compassion, leads to peace and transformation. It reminds us that we deserve to experience peace in our relationships and our lives. And sometimes, the most profound way to achieve that peace is by letting go. The act of cutting the thread. The mentor handed the weaver a small, golden pair of scissors and said, "Use these to cut the thread." The weaver hesitated, her heart heavy with uncertainty. She had spent so many years weaving that thread into her tapestry, and it had come to symbolize something precious to her. She couldn't bear the thought of cutting it away, no matter how much it had started to fray. "But if I cut it, won't it destroy the entire tapestry?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear. The mentor, with a calm and knowing smile, responded, "The thread is already damaging the tapestry. Cutting it will preserve the rest. And remember, cutting does not mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself." These words lingered in the weaver's mind, and for a moment, she simply stared at the thread that had caused so much turmoil in her life. She had grown so attached to it. Her love for it was unquestionable. But as her mentor's words sank in, she realized that holding on was causing more harm than good. The tapestry she had spent so much time and effort creating was no longer in harmony. The frayed thread had pulled at the other threads, disturbing their delicate balance. Despite her desire to preserve it, this thread was no longer contributing to the beauty of her work. In fact, it had become an obstacle to the peace and serenity she longed for. With trembling hands, the weaver took the scissors and gently, almost reluctantly, began to cut the thread. The sound of the snip echoed through the quiet room as the thread separated from the rest of the tapestry. For a moment, the weaver held her breath, unsure of what would happen next. To her surprise, the moment the thread was cut, the entire tapestry seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The absence of the frayed thread allowed the other threads to shine in their full vibrance. The colors seemed brighter, the patterns clearer, and the overall design, once chaotic and tangled, was now more balanced, more beautiful than she had imagined. It was as if the tapestry had been given new life, its true beauty finally able to emerge. This moment, this act of cutting the thread, carries an important lesson that resonates deeply within Zen and Buddhist philosophy. Detachment is not about cruelty or indifference, it's about self-compassion. The weaver's decision to cut the thread was not an act of hatred or abandonment, but one of self-care and respect for the natural flow of life. In cutting the thread, she was not erasing the love or the memories associated with it. She was simply freeing herself from the emotional weight it had carried. By letting go, she created space for the rest of her life to flourish, for the remaining threads to come together in a more harmonious way. In our own lives, we often face situations where we feel bound by attachments, whether to people, habits, or even old wounds that are no longer serving us. These attachments can drain our energy, distort our sense of self, and keep us stuck in patterns that no longer fit who we are or where we want to go. Just like the frayed thread in the weaver's tapestry, these attachments might have once brought us joy or comfort, but over time, they may have become sources of stress, anxiety, or pain. The act of cutting ties with someone or something we love can feel frightening. It may seem like an impossible decision, as if we are betraying the bond we shared or dishonoring the time and energy we've invested. But what we often fail to see in these moments is that holding on can be just as damaging, if not more so, than letting go. By staying attached to something that no longer nurtures us, we risk losing our peace and our ability to grow. Cutting ties doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean that the love we once shared or the memories we created disappear. Instead, it's about acknowledging that some relationships, some attachments, have reached their natural end. It means freeing ourselves from the emotional burden that these attachments carry, allowing us to restore balance and peace in our lives. Letting go opens the door for healing, for new growth, and for the opportunity to create new connections, whether with others or with ourselves. In Zen, The practice of detachment is not about abandoning love, but rather about releasing the need to control or hold on. Detachment is about finding freedom within ourselves, understanding that our happiness does not depend on the presence or absence of others, and that true peace comes from within. By practicing detachment, we learn to love without attachment, to give without expecting, and to live with the awareness that all things, relationships included, are impermanent. For the weaver, cutting the thread was not the end of her connection to it. Instead, it was a transformation. The tapestry became more vibrant and harmonious, just as her life would continue to unfold in unexpected, beautiful ways once she freed herself from the weight of attachment. By cutting the thread, the weaver made room for new possibilities, for new threads to be woven into her life's fabric, threads that would bring greater balance and peace. In the end, cutting the thread was an act of love, not just for the tapestry, but for herself. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a moment of liberation that allowed the weaver to step forward with a heart full of compassion and a spirit open to the flow of life. The act of letting go, far from diminishing the love and beauty she once held, enhanced it, allowing her to live more fully and harmoniously in the present. Forgiveness, releasing guilt and resentment. After cutting the thread, the weaver still felt a deep sense of guilt. Despite the relief that came with the decision, a part of her wondered, what if the thread blamed her for cutting it? What if it felt abandoned or rejected? The emotional weight of her decision lingered, and she found herself caught in a swirl of conflicting emotions. She had freed herself from the frayed thread, but now she was entangled in her own feelings of remorse and sorrow. Her mentor, sensing the weaver's inner turmoil, approached and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. With a calm, compassionate voice, the mentor said, "Forgiveness is the key. Forgive yourself for letting go, and forgive the thread for its imperfections. Only then will you find peace." These words struck deep within the weaver's heart. Forgiveness, of herself and of the thread, was something she had not considered. In her mind, letting go was an act of strength, but she hadn't realized that it also required vulnerability and acceptance. She had been holding on to guilt, thinking that it was her responsibility to maintain the bond with the thread, even when it had already become a source of pain. Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The same applies to guilt. When we hold on to guilt, we are poisoning ourselves emotionally, preventing our own healing and growth. Just like anger, guilt binds us to the past, keeping us stuck in a cycle of regret and self-blame. The weaver had to realize that by holding on to her guilt, she was denying herself the peace and renewal that came with letting go. Forgiveness, in this sense, is not about excusing or justifying the act of cutting the thread. Forgiveness is about releasing resentment and embracing peace. It is about acknowledging the difficult decisions we make and understanding that they come from a place of self-preservation, growth, and love, not cruelty or abandonment. The weaver needed to forgive herself for making a choice that had caused her pain, and she also needed to forgive the thread for no longer serving its purpose. Forgiving herself was the first step. The weaver had to recognize that making the decision to cut the thread wasn't easy, but it was necessary. She was not abandoning the thread. She was releasing it from the burden it had become. This act of forgiveness allowed her to stop blaming herself for the choice and to let go of the emotional weight she had been carrying. Likewise, the weaver had to forgive the thread. It had once been an integral part of her tapestry, but now it had outlived its role. The thread had frayed and caused damage to the larger picture. By forgiving the thread, the weaver acknowledged that nothing in life, whether relationships, circumstances, or objects, stays perfect forever. Everything is subject to change, to wear, and to loss. Forgiving the thread meant understanding that it had fulfilled its purpose, and that the weaver's attachment to it had only caused further harm. There was no need to hold resentment toward it for becoming imperfect, as imperfection was simply part of the natural flow of life. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing the memories, nor does it mean denying the pain. Instead, it is the act of releasing the emotional chains that bind us to that pain. When we forgive, We are no longer prisoners of resentment or guilt. We free ourselves from the emotional burden that holds us in the past. By forgiving, we create space for healing and renewal, space for peace to enter and for new experiences to unfold. For the weaver, forgiving herself and the thread was essential for her to move forward. Only through forgiveness could she find the peace and clarity to embrace her new path. The tapestry, now free of the frayed thread, began to reflect a new harmony, a balance that was not just in the design but in her heart as well. The act of forgiveness had lightened her soul, and with it, she was able to weave new threads, ones that would bring even more beauty, growth, and wisdom into her life. The healing and liberation of letting go. As the days passed, the weaver began to notice something extraordinary. Without the frayed thread, her tapestry began to radiate a new beauty. The once chaotic and disordered fabric now displayed a more balanced and serene pattern. The other threads, though not as bold or vibrant as the one she had let go, seemed to form a more harmonious design. It was as if the removal of a single troubled thread had cleared space for the rest to shine in their own subtle brilliance. The tapestry, now free of the disruption caused by the frayed thread, looked whole again. It was as if the act of letting go had restored the fabric to its natural flow. And it wasn't just the tapestry that was healing. The weaver herself felt a profound sense of peace. She no longer carried the weight of guilt or struggle over the frayed thread. In its absence, she could finally appreciate the beauty of the other threads that had always been there but had been overshadowed by her attachment to the damaged one. This is one of the great paradoxes of Zen and Buddhist philosophy. Letting go often leads to unexpected blessings. When we release what no longer serves us, whether it's a relationship, a belief, or a part of ourselves, we make space for new opportunities, new growth, and new joy. It's not just about the act of cutting ties. It's about the openness that comes after, an openness that allows us to step into the next chapter of our lives with clarity and peace. In the case of the weaver, the removal of the frayed thread made room for other, more vibrant relationships in her life to grow. And while these new threads may not have been as immediately striking as the one she had to let go of, over time, they became the foundation of a more beautiful, balanced tapestry. But the process of letting go doesn't stop at the act itself. It's a continual journey of healing and liberation. Once we make the difficult choice to release what no longer serves us, we must then focus on rebuilding our emotional lives. We need to invest in ourselves, in our healing, in our growth, and in cultivating our own peace. One of the most effective ways to do this is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being present with our thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without judgment. By becoming aware of our inner state, we can begin to understand where we hold on to attachments and where we need to let go. Meditation can also help in this process, allowing us to create a space for inner stillness where we can process our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Journaling is another powerful tool for rebuilding. By writing down our thoughts and feelings, we can gain insight into our emotional landscape and begin to untangle the complexities of attachment, guilt, and sorrow. As the weaver reflected on her tapestry, she could have written about her struggle and her eventual realization that letting go wasn't about rejection, but about freedom, both for herself and for the thread. Engaging in activities that bring joy is equally important. When we release something or someone from our lives, we need to fill the space with things that nourish us, whether it's a hobby, a new project, or spending time with people who uplift us. These practices help us rebuild our emotional tapestry, making space for new, healthier relationships and experiences. In doing so, we can create a life that feels balanced, full, and meaningful, one thread at a time. By letting go, the weaver didn't just heal the tapestry, she began to heal herself. The process of detachment, though painful at first, ultimately brought her liberation. She was free to appreciate the beauty around her, to create new patterns, and to live more fully in the present moment. The tapestry, now a reflection of both her wisdom and her inner peace, had become something even more beautiful than before, a masterpiece of healing and growth, gratitude for the past and moving forward. Although the weaver had made the difficult decision to cut the frayed thread from her tapestry, she still found herself thinking about it often. In the quiet moments of reflection, the memories of the thread would resurface. Initially, there was a sense of loss, a lingering sadness over something that had once been so vital. But as time passed, a profound shift began to occur within her. Instead of feeling sorrow, she began to feel a deep sense of gratitude. That thread taught me so much about myself and about love, she shared with her mentor one day. It had shown her the depths of attachment, the pain of holding on, and the wisdom of letting go. The thread, despite its imperfections and the pain it had caused, had played an essential role in her journey. It had been a teacher in its own way, revealing truths she could not have learned without the experience of clinging to it. This transformation in the weaver's perception encapsulates the essence of non-attachment in Zen. Letting go does not erase the memories or diminish the significance of a relationship. It does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean devaluing what was once meaningful. Instead, it means recognizing that the relationship has played its part and now belongs to the past. By placing it where it belongs, we free ourselves to move forward with a heart full of gratitude. In Zen philosophy, non-attachment is often misunderstood as detachment or indifference. But true non-attachment is not about severing our connection to the past or the people we love. It's about acknowledging that the past is a part of us, but it does not define us. The weaver's gratitude for the thread was an example of this deep understanding. She no longer felt that the thread's absence left a hole in her life. Rather, she appreciated its presence for the time it was there and recognized that it had helped shape her into who she was now. The weaver's tapestry, once marred by the frayed thread, was now more beautiful than ever. The space left by the old thread was not a void. It was an invitation to create something new. This is the paradox of letting go. When we release what no longer serves us, we make space for new growth, new connections, and new opportunities. The tapestry, freed from the disruption of the frayed thread, was able to flourish in ways it never could have before. In our own lives, the same principle applies. When we hold on to relationships, beliefs, or circumstances that no longer serve us, we create an emotional clutter that prevents new experiences from coming in. Letting go allows us to open ourselves up to new possibilities. Just as the weaver's tapestry became more balanced and harmonious after the removal of the frayed thread, we too can create a life that is more aligned with our true selves once we let go of the things that weigh us down. Moving forward with gratitude for the past doesn't mean denying the pain or the struggles we have faced. It means recognizing that everything we have experienced, both the joy and the sorrow, has shaped us into who we are today. Each experience, each person, and each relationship has left an imprint on our hearts, and we carry these lessons forward with us. The space we create by letting go of what no longer serves us is not a place of emptiness, but a fertile ground for new growth. The weaver's tapestry, now transformed, had become a masterpiece of wisdom, beauty, and balance. Similarly, when we release the past with gratitude, we open ourselves to the possibility of creating something even more beautiful in our lives, something that reflects who we are now and who we are becoming. Renewal and inner stillness. Letting go not only frees us from unhealthy attachments, but also grants us the invaluable opportunity to reconnect with our inner peace, a stillness that often gets buried beneath the noise of life. For the weaver, the removal of the frayed thread created a physical and emotional space that allowed her to rediscover a profound stillness within her heart. She realized that, for a long time, she had forgotten this inner sanctuary. The constant turmoil caused by the tangled thread had distracted her from the calm that was always there, waiting to be accessed. But now, with the chaos removed, this inner peace became her refuge. In Zen and Buddhist philosophy, it's emphasized that true happiness doesn't come from external sources, be it relationships, material possessions, or circumstances. Instead, happiness is rooted in the inner calm and clarity that arises when we let go of our need to cling to anything outside of ourselves. Buddha taught that peace is not something to be sought in the world, but rather something to be awakened within. By detaching from our attachments, whether to people, places, or things, we create the space for this inner peace to emerge. This process of detachment doesn't mean disconnecting from the world or abandoning everything that once mattered. It's about releasing the emotional grip we have on people and possessions, understanding that they don't define our sense of self or our happiness. As the weaver discovered, once the frayed thread was cut, the emotional noise quieted, and a profound sense of stillness was able to fill the space left behind. She was no longer consumed by the pain of attachment, and she could finally listen to the calm that had always been with her. This inner stillness is what allows us to heal, grow, and experience true contentment. Mindfulness is one of the most effective ways to cultivate this peace. By practicing mindfulness daily, we bring our attention to the present moment. Instead of being swept away by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, we become fully aware of what is happening right now. This practice helps us observe our thoughts without judgment, allowing them to pass by like clouds in the sky rather than becoming entangled in them. Incorporating mindfulness into our lives doesn't require long hours of meditation or complex rituals. Even taking a few minutes each day to focus on your breath and tune in to the sensations of the present moment can make a significant difference. By observing our thoughts and feelings without attachment, we can cultivate a sense of inner calm that helps us navigate life's challenges with greater ease and resilience. As we grow in mindfulness and inner stillness, we also become more attuned to the subtle whispers of wisdom that guide us. The act of letting go and detaching from external sources of validation allows us to reconnect with the deeper truths within us. We begin to realize that, at our core, we are already complete. Our peace, joy, and contentment are not dependent on anyone or anything outside of ourselves. Like the weaver, we too can find our sanctuary within. As we release attachments and step into a space of stillness, we create the conditions for renewal, a renewal that doesn't just come from the outside world, but from within our own hearts. This inner peace becomes the foundation for all growth, transformation, and healing in our lives. The weaver's story serves as a profound reflection of our own lives. Just like the weaver, each of us is crafting the tapestry of our existence, using threads of love, friendship, and experience. Some threads shine brightly, representing moments of joy, connection, and fulfillment. Others, however, begin to fray or fade, marking times of pain, loss, or change. The challenge we face is not to cling to every thread, but to recognize which ones truly contribute to the beauty of our lives and which ones no longer serve us. Letting go is not about severing love, but about honoring it in a way that allows us to grow and evolve. When we practice non-attachment, we make room for deeper, more authentic connections. We open ourselves to personal growth, new opportunities, and unexpected blessings. Letting go doesn't diminish the value of what we once had. Rather, it creates the space for new experiences to take root and flourish. It's crucial to remember that cutting someone from your life doesn't mean you hate them. It's a profound act of self-love. You are choosing to protect your peace, to honor your own well-being, and to allow yourself the freedom to grow. It's an act of liberation, not only for you, but for the other person as well. By letting go, you allow both yourself and them the space to heal and evolve in ways that wouldn't be possible if you remained tangled in unhealthy attachments. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit from these teachings. Let me know in the comments how letting go has affected your life, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next video.